Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Mars in the ninth house. I happen to have this placement, and quite frankly, for many years before I even thought of doing this kind of work on a professional level, I would read multiple books about the different house placements. And there was something about Mars in the ninth house that always, I don't know if I'd say irked me, but I could never really get a good feel for it. So to kind of explore this once again from the perspective of doing a whole video on it has given me like more information just for myself, let alone for other people. So Mars is this planet which really represents our drive. So everybody thinks ambition looks the same for everybody, which it, obviously does not, or even having it to begin with. And so Mars is one of the best things that I just read in the last few days is that the house that Mars is in shows where we put the most energy into. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Because the ninth house is the God house. It's the house of long distance traveling. So obviously, that does not mean your local area, but far, far away. It's the house of higher education. And we could say also abstract knowledge, because some people don't go to college, but some people they still acquire sophisticated learning or knowledge information. Actually, I would say that we could look at this as a sign of intellectual pursuits. Intellectualism, is there a word such as that? And so the point is that this is the house of expansion, because this is the house that Jupiter rules. So you have this planet Mars, which, yeah, it co-rules Scorpio. I wish we didn't have to deal with that, because then it could be much easier. They don't bother worrying about that, but I'm always thinking of that. But Aries is the sign we most associate with Mars influence, right? And Aries is a fire sign. The ninth house is a fire house because this is Sagittarius' house. And so Mars is going to fit very nicely in there at a certain level. Now, this is also a cadent house, and the cadent houses are the last houses of every element. So, scratch that. I meant quadrant. So you have the angular houses, the first, the fourth, the seventh, and the 10th. So 1, 2, 3, those are 3 houses in one quadrant. Okay, so it's the last in each quadrant. Now, because it's the furthest away from the angular houses, the ancient astrologers would consider that the weakest position. But see, this is really interesting because I'm a self-taught astrologer, and these concepts are not things that I have traditionally absorbed. And therefore, I have approached things from a completely unprejudiced point of view. I actually was reading about this today because I was looking up something else, and I just happened to come about this. And so this is a very important thing. You can read things about astrology, but you get to decide whether you believe them or not, and that includes whatever I say in the list that I've compiled. Now, the list that I've compiled, I've actually taken from 2 websites. So I want to give a shout out to them. One of them is advancedastrology.com, and the other one is astrologyclub.org. And, I compile the list and then I fill in the blanks. But I just want to say that I think what I was looking up was because I know that Sadge is a sign associated with writers. And when I actually looked up at one site, some of you may know the darkpixieastrology.com, they talk about the ninth house as being a house of writers. So I always think of the third house more for that, but that was very interesting. Third house is Gemini. Probably both. They're both houses of communication. That's how they put it. And I was like, interesting. So, in any case, somebody with Mars here has a very active type of a mind. And yet, there is that physicality because Mars is physical. And so that can create, I don't want to say strange bedfellows, but almost like a little bit of that restlessness because Mars wants to kind of get their energy out in a physical way. And it's hard. I mean, of course you can be mentally active, but you know what I mean? There's just like a lot of kind of that visceral stuff happening since Mars rules the first house. So suffice it to say, if you are someone who is very interested in travel, you probably will be, you have an adventurous nature regardless. So for some people who, other factors cooperate, they may prefer to travel in their minds versus actually physically. But for those who love, the idea of hiking and scaling mountains and doing things like that, your nature, your adventurous nature, is something that you have that physical, probably capacity, but also yearning. And one of the sites, astrologyclub.org, I think used the word wanderlust, which is a great word for that because Mars can be very antsy, and wanting to move a lot. That can also make you good at sports. And in general, you just can be very enthusiastic about life. This is like having Mars in Sagittarius. And so there's a very positive element to it. Double fire, which is always going to be very active and positive. If your Mars is close to the midheaven, so that's the 10th house cusp, then this will heighten your ambition because Mars already is about that, but this just kind of really it makes it even more the case because it accentuates that because the 10th house cusp is, the 10th house is the house of career. So that's where they're going with that. They said that you're usually a college graduate, well educated. This is what I wanted to kind of delve into because I can tell you that I did not graduate from, that's true because I have this placement. I did graduate from college. I have a college degree, but I was not 22. I was not 24. I was probably like 42, or maybe I was 44, something along those lines. I went back later. But I can tell you that I was very intellectually active the whole time before I even stepped back into a college or university. So it's very important to point that out because the idea of graduating from college to me is a misnomer. People can graduate from college and never pick up a book again, or rarely pick up a book again. And to me, Sagittarius in the 9th house and higher learning is about lifelong learning, not just about to get a piece of paper. So I want to make that very clear. If you are someone who has this placement and you don't have a college degree, you could still definitely resemble these remarks because of that. In terms of, career aspirations, you may work in a school, so you may be a teacher. Perhaps there are other jobs in the school, but something of an intellectual variety. Working in the school or a university, teaching, politics, they mentioned. I don't know why. Now, the law is connected to the ninth house. Politics, I guess, a lot of politicians are lawyers first, but I don't know. That's what they say. Writing, publishing. Now, let's talk about this being the God house, because I was really quite surprised that they didn't have much about that element. I mean, that's a huge part of the ninth house. And I'm thinking that perhaps this has to do with Mars being the planet. Even though it's a personal planet, the nature of Mars can be combative, and maybe that goes against the dogma of organized religion and makes a person, less likely to accept it and more likely to fight against it. I don't know. But what they did talk about is religious fanaticism. So I would say like the zealot and being intolerant to other points of view. One site mentioned being offended by opposing opinions. I don't believe that that's the case. I can say for my own sake that I love opposing views because I love to debate. And they should have said debating, because I think that somebody with, I think I've read that before about maybe also in the third house, but I think the ninth house could really wipe the floor with people in debates, simply because there is this competitive edge with the person where they want to kind of best the other person. But also, I think because they are armed very well, like, with an intellect. What was that thing of like, if your opponent is, unarmed, it's like you're not matching wits with them or something. I don't know. But what they say too is that I'm paraphrasing. They said that you could be preachy. I think that's a good way of putting it. There's a sanctimonious quality sometimes with Sagittarius that is in the imbalanced or immature version, where the person is very, very, very smug in their beliefs. And when people are smug in their beliefs, when they are preachy, they're actually insecure in their beliefs. A person who stands in their truth sometimes barely utters a word. And the people who are the most verbose can be the ones they're trying to convince themselves more than anything. So yeah, I think in that sense, if somebody is still very immature in their beliefs and very, what's the term, like very insecure in their beliefs, that's when they're the most preachy, and that's when they're the most offended by opposing views. We see that a lot today in our society, where there's an intolerance from multiple points of view. And that is because, well, there's other reasons for that, but I mean, one of the reasons is because there is an insecurity that one's views are not viable, and so you have to demonize somebody else's views. But this is only going to be true for those people who are not well developed. And but this is I think, I'm starting to warm up to this Mars position. I have it in Capricorn, so that's another aspect of it. What is your Mars sign? So how will it manifest in the ninth house? I think I think that someone who is who's like an earth sign, so Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, that person might even be an atheist and be very hell-bent on proving that there is no God. Atheists are one of the most aggressive people when it comes to their belief system. Oh, and the ninth house is belief system. So, if and sometimes atheists may be born out of people who were raised by evangelicals, or I don't want to put them down, evangelicals. What I mean is that proselytizing that they were subjected to, but then they're doing it in their own way. So isn't it funny how people do the very thing that they claim is destructive in society, but because they're doing it with a different name to it, they think that somehow they've reinvented the wheel or something like that. Oh, well, I just wanted to touch base with you on this position. I hope that you resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care.